The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering Co-op Advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, looking at the structures of power through the experiences and artwork of the incarcerated as we talk with Monty Kivett and Megan Seiler about the upcoming Prison Reimagined exhibit at Wisteriahurst.
And if you missed celebrating Western Mass with us yesterday at 413 Day, we'll give you a quick glimpse of how the day went.
Because actually, it was full of presents. One from Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, or LG, as I think we're allowed to call her now.
I think we are. I think she told us that.
I will say that
boldly go where no man has gone before.
The other is from a person 413 listeners will be quite familiar with. Mr. Universe was one of our first guests at 413 Day, and he had a great item to add to the area's cache.
I will say that the shtick of this whole thing is that Western Mass does deserve its own holiday, not just by official proclamation, but we want the day off. Like Patriots Day gets the whole state off. Why doesn't everybody west of Worcester get 413 off, which would work perfect next year because it's a Monday. It'd be a Monday holiday, and then we could do the celebration on the Monday holiday. So
that would be nice. I wonder if there's anyone in this room who could make that happen.
Yes, there are legislators who are here, and the Lieutenant Governor will be coming here to celebrate with us roundabout.
So we can ask her straight up.
Yeah.
Great.
Shall we move on to our next guest?
Yeah, sure.
This next guest was the very first guest I ever had on my previous radio show on Let's Continue to Buzz Market, 93.9 The River, WRSI. He's one of the kindest, smartest, funniest people I know, interested in the most interesting of things, the entirety of the universe. We lovingly call him Mr. Universe. Let us welcome to 413 Day here at City Space, Hampshire College astronomer, 5 College astronomer, and the head of Kainat Studios, Salman Hamid. Your mic is experiencing some erectile dysfunction. That just means lifting up. Salman Hamid, Kainat Studios, I mentioned, is the name of the organization. Tell us what that word means and what that word comes from.
So, thank you very much for having me. And Kainat means universe or cosmos in Urdu. So I come from Pakistan. And so in that language, in Urdu language, Kainat means cosmos.
So you are the Carl Sagan of Pakistan.
No, but I'm inspired by Carl Sagan. And so this is a non-profit where we actually create astronomy videos for grown-ups and kids in Urdu/Hindi. So it's the same, similar, understandable language. But also we have videos in English as well. And so, so both English and Urdu, non-profit videos for kids and grown-ups and about astronomy.
So, just wicked fun.
Yes, and you've been on my show for a very long time, talking about all sorts of things. And now what happens is I go to your home in Amherst on Monday mornings. Salman makes me a delicious cup of coffee, and we record over that coffee, and then I bring it to the airwaves on Monday afternoon. But Khalees doesn't often get to come.
I never get to participate, so I'm really excited about this. I got to do it like twice while you were on vacation. And those are the only times that I get to talk to Salman.
Except for right now, where you're going to lead all of the questions about
what
you want to know about from Salman Hamid right now.
Okay, so what is this thing that we're looking at?
Okay, so I came prepared, and I'm not making any this is not a commentary on anything or anybody. But I was told this is the 413 Day.
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
And for that reason, I actually think, and by the authority given to me by absolutely no one, maybe it should be an executive order. But anyway, but I'm going to declare this particular galaxy. Its official name is NGC 413.
Woo!
It's a real galaxy, and this is going to be the official Fabulous 413 galaxy, which will be... It will be celebrated in the area of 413. If ever you want to talk about which is our galaxy, you can say it is NGC
413.
There you go. So here you go. This is This galaxy is located about 250 million light years away. So it's a little bit far away, but that's okay. We are used to traveling. You are looking at a couple of 100 billion stars here. And I wanted to make it official. I don't just want to say this. So, Monty and Khalees, here you go.
Wow.
Official proclamation of NGC 413 as an official 413 galaxy.
That's fantastic. It does
It's your
say-
galaxy, too. We've just
Yeah.
commandeered
It's
it.
our galaxy.
It's everybody's galaxy. It's a galaxy for all of Western Mass. What does the NGC stand for?
But that's an excellent question. That's New General Catalog, and very boring name. But here is the cool thing about it. This particular galaxy, by the way, this fuzzy thing that you are seeing, and you go like, well, why is it fabulous? Well, what you are looking at is about a few 100 billion stars. But this galaxy is very small, and it's actually quite far away, and it's not very famous. It's not one of those pretty galaxies that you see from James Webb Space Telescope and other. This is actually not a very well-studied galaxy. In fact, it is hard to find much facts about it, but I believe there are good people in there. I think if there is life form in there, they would be looking at it because there are more than 100 billion stars and most likely several 100 billion planets there. So somebody from over there is looking at us and saying, hey, what is that? And they're saying, well, that's the Milky Way. But I said, no. A little bit on the outskirts of the Milky Way. And they said, well, that's the sun. And they were like, no. What's next to it? Oh, that's the planet Earth. And that's where we are, and they probably are looking at 413.
And they're saying, there's probably some good people there, too.
Probably. We can find out.
Everyone is beautiful.
And I should mention that this galaxy was first discovered in 1886 by an American astronomer, Francis Leavenworth. And at the time when it was discovered, so this is how science works as well, we didn't know that this was a galaxy. In fact, the idea that these fuzzy patches in the sky are actually galaxies with hundreds of billions of stars was only in the 1920s and 1930s. So when it was discovered, Francis thought this was a fuzzy thing and something to be sort of like, cast aside, or because it just muddies up other interesting things like comets, for example, and other types of things. But then later on, we discovered that this little fuzzy patch turns out to be a beautiful galaxy, a galaxy that was later on proclaimed to be an official galaxy of 413.
Can you explain, Salman Hamid, the International Star Registry, and why we have as much right to say this is our galaxy as anybody who has been duped by the radio commercials to buying a star for somebody for like Father's Day from the International Star Registry?
This holiday season, give the most unique and memorable gift of the year. Name a star after someone. I'm Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry.
I can, but I was going to actually suggest that if anybody wants to name a galaxy, I'm available, for $50. No.
Yeah. If you make a contribution to
Just
NEPM now,
as legitimate.
we will find a star for you, and you can give it to whoever you want.
Oh my
Not-
gosh, that's
not-
the best pledge drive thing ever.
Not just a star. I'm talking about galaxies. Star is
billions
just
of
one
stars.
star. In galaxies, you have hundreds of billions of stars, and we can name it just for you. So here is the thing. You can name, so International Star Registry, and again, nothing wrong about that, but official names in astronomy are only recognized by International Astronomical Union, or IAU. And so so I can say this, but as long as, until IAU says, no, this is an official 413 galaxy, it doesn't mean much. Now, that I wasn't prepared for that particular question because I just thought that everybody would believe me. But yes, so International Astronomical
believe you.
Union is the one that actually names things. But here in 413, it's me and Monty and Khalees.
You mean like it's not part of your job as an astronomer to just look at the sky and start naming things?
There are some things if you discover, especially regarding comets, for example, if you are the first one to discover, then yes, you can get a name for that. But again, that has to be recognized by the International Astronomical Union. But yeah, for most cases, it's not. There was an interesting competition to name exoplanets, planets around other stars, and the IAU actually had asked different countries to name stars and the planets around them officially. And more recently, they have other campaigns that people actually can suggest names. There's a quasi-moon of the Earth. Recently, it was given a name, so and so forth. So you can.
And it was given a name through the public radio show Radio Lab, and we had the Radio Lab folks on our show, and
IAU
Salman Hami,
also.
and the IAU, and we had a big conversation about it. They did not take my suggestion for what the name of that false moon is.
Which was?
The Death Star, because that's no moon.
That was no moon. That's exactly right.
I thought it was a good name.
I thought this was an excellent name, I have to say.
Didn't even get in the running.
No. There were some good things in the running.
So can I mention a few more things
Yes.
about it? If we can go
Next
to the
slide, Bart.
next slide, let's see what happens. Okay, so I just want to mention a couple of things. Like, let's talk about sort of like a little bit of science within that context. So this galaxy, by the way, it's helpful if you are looking for it in the sky, because NGC 413 is written on the sky.
Oh, yeah, that's so
if you
cool.
have a right telescope, it will be right next to NGC 413. Okay. It's a particular type of galaxy, and it's called SBRC. What does that mean? Well, S means it's a spiral galaxy. So spiral is like our own Milky Way. We are inside of it, and that's a spiral galaxy. Big B is a barred galaxy. I mean, there are a lot of bars in East Hampton too, but this is a slightly
Gigantic. Shameless
different-
plug.
That's right. So there's a slightly different type of bar. There is a straight line in it, stars. We think the Milky Way also has a bar towards the center.
But we don't know because we can't see ourselves.
It's very hard to study the structure of our own galaxy, even though we are inside of it. But it makes it difficult because we cannot go outside and take a picture. So we have to guess these shapes. So we think there is a bar at the middle, but at the center of the galaxy, but this is where it comes from. And C, the small c in there, it tells you how the spiral arms are tight or loose. So if you go to A, that's much more tight spiral arms, C, much looser. So if you go to the next slide, and all of this comes from, because that's what we do, as I mentioned, the first galaxy, when we identified galaxies in the early 20th century, and then the first thing you do, just like plants or other things, you classify them. So people started to classify galaxies based upon their shape. So on your left-hand side are elliptical galaxies, because astronomers thought, well, they are like a blob. Ellipticals, they're sort of like, around there. Those were ellipticals. And if you keep on going, then there are spiral galaxies. In the lower side, there are spiral galaxies that have bar in the middle. You can actually see sort of like, a straight line going through it. Above it, you don't have a bar. That's the spirals. And this galaxy would be somewhere in the middle of the tuning fork. By the way, this is also called a tuning fork diagram. It has nothing to do with tuning fork except for its shape. But it's kind of cool.
Cool name.
Cool, yeah.
But not like a fork or something that it resembles a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. If we can go to the one more slide. And I should also mention that this galaxy is located, if you want to find out yourself where it is in the constellation of Cetus. It is visible in the fall, in the nighttime. I mean, right now it is available, but it's during the daytime. So if you want to see it at nighttime, you'll have to wait for the fall, and it will be sort of like lower, closer to the horizon. It's really a southern hemisphere constellation, but we can see it. So that is where it is. And constellation Cetus, it's the sea monster, whale, shark, fish. A lot of people have thought about it in different ways. So that's where it is located.
How do you feel about your new Galaxy 413?
That's a pretty good present for a new holiday.
I think so. Let us officially declare all those present, because this is basically how Pluto got kicked out of the planets. International Astronomical Union waited till everyone was gone, voted on kicking Pluto out. So even though there's only a couple hundred of us here or whatever, we're going to vote this galaxy in as our official galaxy for the 413.
All those in favor?
Nice.
Awesome.
So moved. NGC 413 is officially the galaxy in the constellation Cetus that belongs to us here in Western Massachusetts. Hampshire College astronomer and the head of Kainat Studios, Mr. Universe, Salman Hamid.
Later in the show, we'll learn about an art exhibit collecting the work of and curated by incarcerated folks with Monty Kivett and Megan Seiler with Prison Reimagined making its way to Wisteria Hearst Museum this week.
But next, more of our 413 Day festivities from yesterday with a visit from Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, who also, it turns out, has a present for all of us.
Is it as good as the Galaxy, though?
All the presents are pretty.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Real Pickles, a worker-owned cooperative in Greenfield producing organic fermented vegetables sourced from Northeast farms. More information at realpickles.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Yesterday, we threw a party for 413 Day.
Because it was April 13th, 413.
And someone who could help make the date a true holiday for the Commonwealth happened to come all the way from Beacon Hill to help us celebrate. But, as is so often the case, elected officials run on elected official time.
So I think the best course of action right now, because the lieutenant governor is coming.
Let's bring up Sylvie.
What's that?
Let's bring up Sylvie.
You think we should do that, or should we take a little break in anticipation of the lieutenant governor who was supposed to be here 5 minutes ago? And then when the lieutenant governor comes, we'll talk to the lieutenant governor and then Sylvie. Or do you want to do Sylvie now and then make the lieutenant governor wait for 20 minutes for the end of Sylvie's set? This is how we do the. This is how we do all the.
This is how we schedule everything.
You know, wise plan far and ahead when.
We've got cheers for Sylvie.
Do you want to hear? Wait a minute. I'm getting a text. So if this is not the lieutenant, she's here trying to get her in. So that's the answer right there. And the miracle of modern technology.
Our decisions have been made for us.
Our decisions are made. See, that's why it's good to do this live in front of an audience so that they hear, they connect, and then we'll be here on the lieutenant governor.
Okay.
Since we're going to buy time until she gets up here, who has something that they love about Western Massachusetts that they would like to share? And I will Phil Donahue style run out to you and hold the microphone up to you to tell us what it is.
Or I can do it.
Either of us can do it. Something in particular that keeps you in Western Mass. What's your name?
My name is Ann.
Where do you live, Ann?
Great Falls.
What's something you love about the 413?
All the rivers.
The one mighty river and all of its tributaries. Anyone else? Okay, here we go. This is a little bit inside baseball, perhaps.
Sita, live in Great Falls as well. I love the Shea Theater where we saw Joan Osborne last night.
Again, shameless plug, they're a plant. I brought Ann and Sita to be in the audience to do just this. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Mary Biddle, and I'm from Northampton.
And what is something you love about the 413?
I love the Forbes Library, where Usman Power Green is a researcher.
Oh, wow. Another big fan of Usman Power Green and the Forbes Library. Thank you so much. I've appropriately bought us enough time.
Yes, you have.
Please welcome to the stage your Lieutenant Governor for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Kim Driscoll. Woo! Thank you for joining us. Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll was the former mayor of Salem, Massachusetts, and I have to admit, I am a huge fan of Salem and the North Shore.
I mean, Salem's pretty awesome. We weren't so great to women in 1692.
That's true.
But we've come a long way since then.
That's absolutely
Certain women
true.
in 1692.
Yes.
How dare you fend for yourself?
You traveled out here specifically to come celebrate this with us.
413 Day! Woo!
Which is beautiful, because the first time we talked to you mostly about how Western Mass feels a little bit forgotten in the scope of the Commonwealth.
And why anybody would want to forget this beautiful space is lost on me. 4 counties, 1 day, started at Mass MoCA. I've already been to Great Falls. Here, we're ending in Springfield at the Springfield Museums. Like and by the way, we're only seeing a thumbnail, right? There's so much to do and see and enjoy. We want more Red Sox caps out here. We don't mind the Yankees caps, but we want more Red Sox caps. That's our goal.
We're Woo Sox
Actually,
people.
we do mind the Yankees caps. I take that back.
I also mind.
I take that back.
I taught my children very early on, even though only one of them really likes baseball, to whenever they see a Yankees symbol, to say, "Boo Yankees, you stink Yankees, gotta change your diaper Yankees." And I unfortunately made it so that one of my children believed that the Yankees logo was some sort of like illicit symbol. And I was like, it really isn't. It's fine. I mean, it's like, you know, you can see it printed and you're not going to get canceled. Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, it's an honor to have you here. And the Commonwealth, as Khalees was saying, does oftentimes get overlooked. So apart from where you've been today, what are some of the things that you appreciate about the 413?
I mean, I just want to say how beautiful the geography is. I think we have wonderful state-owned DCR parks and opportunities to celebrate spaces that people in my neck of the woods go out of state to New Hampshire or Maine. You've got it all right here. And so that's really special to me. Last summer, I saw Kool and the Gang at Tanglewood. That was pretty awesome. All right, I'll put that up there. But honestly, it really is about the people and the spaces. There's an authenticity to the 413 that I really like and appreciate. And we really do feel like part of government is government everywhere in Massachusetts. And so we know the oxygen can get lost out of Boston, but there are amazing hill towns and beautiful places in Western Mass. And for some people in the eastern part of Mass, they think Western Mass is Worcester, right? And by the way, Worcester's awesome and doing great work. So we want to celebrate. We really do want to celebrate all the parts of Massachusetts. We've changed formulas. We've leaned in, listening to our local, more rural places, understanding what their needs are, and just the creative economy here. Like, I spent 2 hours at Mass MoCA. I could have spent 2 days at Mass MoCA, and there's just a lot of us who really appreciate this space and want to make sure we're shouting it from the rooftops.
You'll have to come back for an art walk.
I would love an art walk.
Because East Hampton does one, and so does Northampton, and they're both really awesome.
Well, I think Greenfield. I don't know if Greenfield
yeah,
does an art
Greenfield
walk.
also does
Yeah,
one.
exactly. So there's lots to see and do, and it's a special place. So kudos to all of you who live here for allowing those of us who don't to come in. We won't wreck it, I promise. We'll make it better.
That's generally New York.
When we started this show, we had a listener who said, if you tell everybody how good the 413 is, there will be traffic out here. And I said, I promise you, if that happens, we will change the name of the show.
I have a dry question for you. So how much of your new awareness of the cool things in Western Mass has to do with the Office of Rural Affairs?
Yeah, so we created an Office of Rural Affairs because we really do think rural economies are different, needs of rural towns are different, and how do we sort of fine-tune what we do, whether it's formula for school funding, how we think about dollars for roads and bridges. Rural communities, I like to say, they're like Ginger Rogers. They have to do everything that a bigger community does, but backwards and in high heels. So we've got to be able to support those smaller places in a different way and put our thumb on the scale sometimes for them. And that's what the Office of Rural Affairs helps us do. Let's empower rural Massachusetts. And most of it is just building off of all the good stuff you already have here. But you just need a little oomph. You need a little help maybe to get that over the hump of something that can support itself. And that's our goal.
When it's so rural out here, and you, as the lieutenant governor, which you're colloquially called by your office the LG.
Yeah.
Anytime anything has to do with the lieutenant governor, it's always LG's doing this, LG's doing that. When you're so rural out here, I think we should call you Hillbilly LG.
Not
oh no! Wait a minute.
Not
That's
hillbilly elegy.
Oh, that's a total. Oh, that's right. Oh yeah, that's a totally. I realize now that's a totally different thing.
Everyone who's booing, you're right. Yes, that's the right answer.
It's a totally different thing.
Does everybody get that?
We do have excellent couches out here, though.
Dislike.
So first off, Khalees is really the driving force behind putting this whole day on. So please give a round of applause, please.
I just felt like we deserved a party.
Yeah, we do.
When we reached out to the Healy Driscoll administration's offices and said, we've got this crazy idea, we want to make 413 Day an official holiday, we want it to be proclaimed from Beacon Hill, we want it to be real, your office reached out and were like, we already did that. And there are a couple of other Beacon Hill elected officials who either were here or are here. I see Representative of East Hampton, Omar Gomez, is here. Come up on stage, Representative.
Come on, Rep.
Is Senator Jake Oliveira still out there?
He might have come and gone.
And the mayor is up here. Come on up here, too. It's all photo.
on,
If you're an
Mayor.
elected official, yes, come up here. Everybody loves to get their picture taken with the lieutenant governor. With the Hillbilly LG.
You keep saying it.
What I think we really would love is, can we get a state holiday day off? Like Patriots
Well, I've
Day.
got better, okay? Well, no, it's not better than a day off. But we did want to officially recognize 413 Day with
Whoa, look at that.
an official state proclamation.
Woo! Proclamation!
Whoa!
And this is officially from the governor, my friend and teammate Maura Healy, declaring April 13th, 2025 to be 413 Day and urging all residents of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. I think that's what we're doing by being here today.
Very fitting. Very fitting.
That's extra real.
Okay, the next thing we want from the Healy Driscoll administration, we want to rename the Quabbin the Gulf of Incorporation.
Disincorporation, right?
Okay.
Yeah, disincorporation. How about that?
I will take that under advisement.
Okay.
Yes.
Before we let you go, Lieutenant Governor, you are excited about some of the 250th anniversary celebrations, the anniversary of the beginning of the American Revolution that will take place across the Commonwealth and certain things specifically here in the 413.
You know, we're so fortunate to be from Massachusetts. Really, the original troublemakers, throwing the tea in the harbor. You know, we were the people who stood up and resisted. So while the rest of the country will be celebrating the birth of the American democracy in 2026, we actually start this year in 2025. because we were ahead of the curve. So later this
Northampton does Pride in May instead of June.
There you go. I mean, always. We'll be celebrating the Shothood around the world later this month in Lexington and Concord. But throughout the entire period of time from now until 2026, we really do want to recognize the immense role we played. If you think about it, these were ordinary people who would have been in a room like this who decided to risk life and limb for something called self-governance and fundamental freedoms and the idea of democratically led institutions that didn't exist at the time. And that says something about who we are. I think it's why we're still #1 for public schools and #1 for healthcare, #1 state when it comes to the most college-educated adults, #1 place to raise your family. These are just some of the recognition that we have. We're a place that believes in science and what it can do. That's why life-saving drug therapies are invented in Massachusetts. First state for marriage equality, first state for universal health care. Like, I could go on. And I say that as someone who didn't have the good fortune to be born here, a Navy brat, lived all over, came to Massachusetts and said, there's something special about this place. We make the impossible possible. We tackle hard problems. So we're going to be celebrating that beginning now up until through 2026. And that really is about celebrating all of that history. And so while a lot of it happened in that place, over by 617, that doesn't mean there aren't revolutionary stories everywhere. We've got something going on in Springfield tied to the revolutionary leaders that lived in that community and what it meant. We're going to recreate the Knox Trail from New York, bringing those cannons back. We're going to be telling the stories that led, and some stories that were not told. I left Masmoka, where there's an indigenous exhibit, that we got to tell that story as well. And we're trying to think about this as a celebration of our history, a chance to really recognize, now more than ever, right? We helped create democracy. We got to fight like hell to preserve it, right? And we will, because that's who we are. But we also want to think about what's the gift to the next generation. Those farmers and merchants and blacksmiths who stood up for something that was bigger than themselves. What's our gift to the next generation as we think about those of us who are here now, lucky enough to be in positions of leadership? What can we collectively do with all of you? Like, we don't think the cavalry's coming from Washington to save us. We're the cavalry. We're going to figure it out. So let's go Massachusetts. Let's go 250.
Love it.
That's perfect.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, LG, if I might, next year, 2026, April 13th, is a Monday. So will we have a Monday holiday?
I mean, we have Evacuation Day in Suffolk County. The least we can do
it
is
just
get
happens to be
413.
on March 17th.
Yeah.
What else is on March 17th for the Boston Irish? I don't know. We better take the day off. Well, we really appreciate you coming to the 413. We appreciate the support Beacon Hill brings here to the 413. We thank folks like our representative here from East Hampton and the mayor of East Hampton for collaborating with Beacon Hill to not be forgotten on this left-hand side of the greatest Commonwealth.
Western Mass is Bestern Mass.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
Lieutenant
but
Governor.
call the show that.
Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, everyone. Thank you so much. Oh, photo op again. I'll hold up the proclamation.
Thanks to everyone who came out and reveled with us for 413 Day yesterday.
And to everyone who helped make our party dreams come true in celebration one way or another.
We'll share more of the day's guests and get-downs next week on the show.
But up next, we head to Holyoke, where an innovative look at our nation through the artwork of the incarcerated is opening tomorrow. We talk with curator and artistic director Monty Kivett about Prison Reimagined next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, offering solar options, energy security, and solutions for the local community. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. This week, Wistariahurst Museum welcomes an exhibit of artwork and writing by incarcerated artists critiquing the U.S. justice system. Prison Reimagined features a series of portraits of U.S. presidents and writing pieces that touch on people's experiences within the prison system.
The project was organized by curator and artistic director Cadell Monty Kivett from inside a correctional facility in North Carolina. Since the project's inception in 2021, Prison Reimagined has grown to an exhibit featuring 23 written and 23 visual works.
We had a chance to speak with Monty Kivett about the collection, but it was not without its own struggles.
Well, Monty's like a nickname off of my last name, Belmonte, so yeah. So we're both Monty nicknames. I love it. All right, we'll be looking for you on the other line. I wonder if we could call him and then it would be not costing him money.
I don't know. But I guess we could ask in case this happens again.
He may have to go through a million different hoops to get out of the phone system there. Because I had to hit 5 to accept that one.
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from
Cadell Kivett,
an inmate at Franklin Correctional Center. This call will be monitored and recorded. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this, thank you for using Global Tel Link.
We did it.
Good morning.
Oh, my goodness, we made it.
Well, thanks for making us
Well,
happen.
we're here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
We're glad to be speaking with you. This is a really interesting project.
Cadell Monty Kivett. We both share the Monty moniker, but our situations are much different, as it was very complicated to even have a phone call with you and the phone tree that we have to go to, as you are incarcerated in a facility in North Carolina.
Right. With today's technology, and we still have to go through these hoops to make a phone call.
Not to mention the fact that it probably costs you a fortune to make this phone call when we could have very easily called you for little to no money the other way if it was only possible. But we're not here to talk about the inequities in the phone system in prison. We're here to talk about Prison Reimagined, the art project that you have helped to conceive. Tell us about the beginnings of this project that we'll see at Wisteriahurst coming up on April 15th.
Sure. So in 2021, I was sitting in my prison cell in North Carolina, and we had just watched President Biden's inauguration, and I left the TV kind of inspired, thinking maybe that we had turned a corner with a new hope that it was a good time to get in front of the public and get some of the ideas about reform and abolition out in front of them. And so, inspired by the possibilities of a new administration, and also at a camp where art programs were fostered by men on the inside that had been doing this for a long time.
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
I had this absurd idea that if we drew presidents of our portraits, and in the context of their connection to criminal punishment, and then presented those to the leaders who we would like to have hear our voices, that we could actually make some type of impact. And so that's how we got started. I had made connections through a magazine that I did write for called the Nash News, which was a magazine completely produced by incarcerated men out of North Carolina. And I had made a few outside connections through that. And one of the connections I made was with a nonprofit called Justice Arts Coalition. They work with incarcerated artists to help them develop their work or to get their work on the internet, things that are hard to do through technology, of course, from prison. And I reached out to Justice Arts Coalition and just said, hey, I've got an idea. Here's my crazy idea, and I need somebody to help me do it. And after a few months of back and forth, they said, okay, we're in. So that's kind of how it got started.
So cool. How many of the portraits in the exhibit are from the facility that you're at?
So I've been moved from that facility since then. But the facility that I was at, there were, ones I'm counting, there were men that I had met at that facility that had also been moved, but I think the total was 4 pieces came from that facility. Interestingly, one guy who lived like 3 cells down from me had submitted, and I had no idea he had submitted, and he had no idea I had anything to do with the project. We had done about 7 years together, and one day he just showed up at my cell door and said, hey, you got something to do with this? And he held up a flyer that I had typed a year and a half before and sent to D.C. and had been distributed throughout the country, and made it back to him a couple doors down from me. And we kind of rekindled a bond over that. But the art and the show was submitted from at least 13 different states from all over the country. So yeah, we really have a wide range and a wide representation of the nation's incarcerated people.
We are speaking with the curator and artistic director of a new exhibit that will be at Wisteriahurst starting on Tuesday, April 15th. Cadell Monty Kivett, who is currently behind bars in a correctional facility in North Carolina. Monty, should I call you Monty?
Yeah, that's great. That's what everybody
you
calls
can call me Monty, too. Did you?
Excellent.
Did you do any of the portraits yourself?
So I didn't. I actually took the position of an organizer and curator. I do have an art history, but I'm not near as talented as the people that have submitted for this. So as a curator and as an organizer, in order to be completely unbiased, not only did I not contribute any of my work, but also the works that were submitted blind. So what we did is at the camp that I was at, where I was talking about earlier, Nash, the really progressive place, put together a panel of artists and writers that did not contribute to the show with their works. And when all the works came into Justice Arts Coalition in D.C., prints of those were made and sent to us at Nash Correctional, and the Committee of Incarcerated Artists and Writers, a panel of 10 incarcerated men, we judged all of the works and decided which works would go in the show and what order they would be displayed in. And we did that blind, so we had the men and women that submitted, we had their names removed from the works in the copies so that we could literally do a blind selection process. So we were actually judging works of guys that were at the same camp we were at, those three, and we didn't even know that it was their work.
That's really cool.
Pretty cool.
You mentioned that your previous facility was more progressive. Does the facility that you're currently at have any of those or similar arts programs for you to participate in?
So that's a great question, because I went from what is probably the model prison in North Carolina, being Nash, to one that is more about housing and labor, and really it's a desert for programming. But one thing that has happened is that, I've been here a year now. I see the potential in this camp, and there are some administrators here that were at Nash with me prior. And so, no, this camp has none of those things, but it does have the potential to be a great place, and we're working towards that. So I say that to say, in 3 weeks, we will have our inaugural edition of our first newspaper. It's called the Franklin Standard. The camp I'm at is Franklin Correctional Center. The Franklin Standard will come out in 3 weeks, and I was here maybe 2 months, and I wrote a proposal and pitched it to an administrator that knew my prior work from the Nash News. And it took about 4 months to get it approved, and it took another several months to get a little bit of workspace and some quiet time. And so really for the last couple of weeks, in addition to putting together PRP3 for Wisteria Hearst, I've been grinding away, editing and doing layout work. And so, yeah, this place has potential.
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
We keep getting interrupted by the automated voice there, Monty, if you didn't know, telling us exactly where you are. And we are speaking with curator and artistic director Cadell Monty Kivett about PRP3, as mentioned, the Prison Reimagined project that will be at Wisteria Hearst in Holyoke with an opening reception on Tuesday, April 15th. I know that these are portraits of U.S. presidents with writing pieces that then touch on people's experiences within the prison system. Can you name one of the presidents and one of the stories that goes with it that sticks out to you that we might see if we go to this exhibit at Wisteria Hearst?
Sure, and there's so many, but let me start with, there's one piece that is a 6-panel untitled Obama piece. This portrait, it's about 4 by 6 feet, and this piece was created by 3 men that were on federal death row, and they were serving time in segregation, or the hole as we call it. Now, if you're in the hole, you don't have any kind of contact with anyone else. So they completed this piece together by passing the panels under the door to an incarcerated worker, or occasionally would pass a panel under the door to an officer that would take it to the next gentleman, and they completed this on federal death row in the hole. Now, since they had started this piece before Prison Reimagined even existed, because they had their own ideas that they wanted to express about some of the disappointment with the Obama administration, and one of those men, Lesmond Mitchell, has since been executed. So this is the types of hard subjects that we address in this project. Since then, the other 2 men have been released from the hole. Yuri Katimov is one of the men, and when we did our inaugural exhibit at President Lincoln's Cottage last year, Yuri was able to call in briefly and speak a little bit and express his appreciation. He was connected to us through Abe Bonowitz, the gentleman that runs Death Penalty Action, which is an anti-death penalty nonprofit.
This is a touring exhibit that goes all over. Where are some of the other places that this has been shown?
Sure. So we have been really fortunate with the places that we've partnered with. Last year, our inaugural exhibit was at President Lincoln's Cottage, which is 3 miles from the White House. What's significant about Lincoln's Cottage is it was actually Lincoln's summer retreat, and it's where he drafted the Emancipation Proclamation. And so the gentleman I was talking about earlier that lived 3 cells down from me at Nash, we actually hung his piece of Obama, our first black president, in the room where Lincoln drafted the Emancipation Proclamation. So there's this kind of full circle connection, because in the South especially, there are these connections between incarceration and emancipation. So as slavery was ended, the prisons were ramped up, and some of the culture still exists today in the work culture in the prisons in the South. There are actually plantations that have closed in the South, Caledonia, Angola, and Louisiana, Parchment in Mississippi. Slave plantations that closed and reopened as prisons, to give you an idea, and these all 3 are still in exist today and operate very much the way they did in the 1880s. So Lincoln's Cottage, we had a deep tie there. We hung the show, a limited version, briefly at Amnesty International's annual conference last year, and then just in January through March of this year, we displayed at Workhouse Arts Center in Fairfax County, Virginia. The thing about Workhouse is it is a former federal carceral institution that was opened around the 1900, around the turn of the century. And it, in the beginning of 2000s, after 100 years in existence, they closed that prison, and the county ended up with the property, and they reopened it as a community arts center. And the beauty about that place is that it really represents everything that Prison Reimagined, ultimately long-term, would like to see accomplished, which is the closing of prisons and introducing and increasing resources for communities. Now we're about to open in Wisteria Hearst, and we're really excited here. You know, the history of that building, and I will tell you something about the history of that building that has struck a deep chord with me, is William Skinner, the man who commissioned the building of Wisteria Hearst. He had that home from its original location, several miles from where it is now, in another small town. He had that home dismantled and transported by ox cart, is what the history says, to its current location in Holyoke and rebuilt where it stands today. And when I think about this idea of having something dismantled and carried by ox cart and reassembled, it resonates deeply with me, because I feel like in my 15 years of incarceration, this is the type of personal transformation that I've gone through, but it also represents a greater look of what we could do with how we address.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
It's going to cut us off in 60 seconds, but it is a deeper, wider look at how we could address harm in this country by dismantling our current system, which doesn't deter crime and it doesn't make us better as a country. And we could maybe put together something that is more community-based, transformative, and restorative-based, and find something that makes both victims and bad actors whole.
That is the curator and artistic director of
You have 30 seconds remaining.
an exhibit that will be at the Wisteria Hearst Museum starting Tuesday, April 15th, with a reception at 4:30. Cadell, Monty, Kivett, our hearts are with you as you're doing this incredible work and can't be out with us to experience it.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. Please, everybody, come out. There's so much to learn from this exhibit. I really appreciate your time this morning.
Oh my God, thank you so much for talking with us.
Take care, y'all.
You too. Cheers. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry.
Wow.
I'm gonna cry.
That guy knows more about the history of that building than most people that live in, a 30-mile radius of that building.
Yep.
Up next, we'll hear from the director at Wisteria Hearst, Megan Seiler, about bringing Prison Reimagined to Holyoke and some of the challenges she faced bringing the exhibit to Massachusetts.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
All right, now we're going to call Megan, the museum director at Wisteria Hearst.
Okay.
Wisteria Hearst, this is Megan.
Hi, Megan. This is Khalees and Monty.
Hi, how are you?
All right, how are you?
We just got off the phone with Monty. It was powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad you could connect with him.
Yeah. It took some doing. I made some mistakes. But
and it's hard to call from.
Mistakes were made.
It's hard to call from and to a prison.
Yes.
Yeah, on purpose.
Yes. Which I guess we didn't have time to get into, but absolutely is part of the problem.
And we're speaking with Megan Seiler, the museum director at Wisteria Hearst in Holyoke, who will be hosting this opening reception of Prison Reimagined 3 this Tuesday, April 15th from 4:30 to 6:30.
Megan, how did Wisteria Hearst come across this exhibit to show it on their grounds?
So the first site to host the exhibit was Lincoln's Cottage in the D.C. area. And one of the people that works at that museum, Rebecca Kilborn, is a descendant and is on our board. So she brought it to a board meeting and said, hey, this was a really powerful exhibit. They are looking to move it around the country, and this might be a perfect site for it. And I said, great. So, scheduled a meeting, met with the organizers, Haley and Janie, and started talking about the possibility of bringing it here. And kind of looking over what the contents of the exhibit were, and it just seemed like a really exciting opportunity to bring this really powerful exhibit to Western Mass.
You mentioned that your board member was a descendant. Are they a descendant of the Wisteria Hearst or a descendant of the Lincoln?
Oh, descendant of Wisteria Hearst, the original Skinner family that owned the house. So that's why she serves on our board. So she works for Lincoln's Cottage, but works as an advisory member of the board for Wisteria Hearst Museum.
We had to jump through so many hoops just to talk to Monty. I'm curious if you had to do similarly to get a hold of the exhibit.
Yeah, so luckily there are two really amazing women helping on this project, Janie and Haley. So they helped kind of get the conversation started, because it is hard for Monty to get into contact with other people. And then the city phones actually blocked the phone call the first time we tried to talk with Monty, one-on-one. And so he tried calling like 1,000 times, and it kept not going through. So eventually I was like, just here's my cell phone, just call that. And it's such if you just experience it, it's an incredibly frustrating system. I know I'm on a call with a prison. Like, I had to accept the call.
Right.
You don't need to interrupt my conversation.
Think about the
with
flow
an alert.
of, like, you're trying to have an emotional conversation with this beloved person that is behind bars, and every minute you're reminded that they're behind bars by an automated voice to block the flow.
And then when it gets towards the end of their time, it's like, you have a minute left.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, okay, well, way to curtail everything that I meant to get across or connect with.
Yeah.
I mean, it costs them a lot of money to call as well.
Right.
So, they're literally eating up their money with every single alert, and it's just incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, and I offered to call there, but he was like, you won't be able to get to me. You won't be able to get through. And we're speaking with Megan Seiler, who's the museum director at Wisteria Hearst, and this exhibit will open on Tuesday, April 15th. Other Monty described one of the pieces that portrayed of President Obama. Is there a piece that you would like to elucidate to us, to tantalize us to come to either the opening or this exhibit when it's still up at Wisteria Hearst?
There's been quite a few that when I look at them, I'm just kind of in awe of the talent that's behind it. I mean, even just putting the content aside, like the technical skill is incredible. I mean, it's hard to pick one that I really love. That one's a very powerful piece. There's one of a $5 bill that is so impeccably done that it blows my mind. And then the welcoming piece that we have above the mantle right when you walk into the marble lobby is another Lincoln. And I think it's really great to start with Lincoln and talking. It kind of gets the conversation starting about, what did Lincoln do to move us forward? What has not changed since Lincoln when it comes to incarceration? How has enslavement sort of become part of incarceration? And I really like starting it with that piece. I think it's a really great way to begin the exhibit.
Megan Seiler is the museum director at Wisteria Hearst. This exhibit is called Prison Reimagined. It was curated by our previous guest, artistic director Cadell Monty Kivett, who is behind bars in a correctional facility in North Carolina. And the opening reception for this exhibit is this coming Tuesday, April 15th from 4:30 to 6:30. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
You can find more information on Wisteria Hearst Museum's website.
So cool.
Yes, and
So
powerful.
cool. Yes, very.
I can't think of a more powerful conversation that I've had on the phone than talking behind bars and hearing that interruption over and over again.
Constantly. And it's like a weird reminder both to the person you're talking to and yourself of just the general situation that you're in and talking around.
Yeah, and they're robbing you of the money because you paid for that call, and every minute they're interrupting you, and you're not
Is
getting
less
that time
that you
back.
have to get whatever points you were in the middle of across. It's just, it is upsetting.
But nevertheless,
really cool
they
that we got to
prevail,
talk with him.
and you can see this exhibit tomorrow at Wisteria Hearst,
And-
starting tomorrow.
Yeah, starting tomorrow. And it will be up for a while. Like Megan said, there's a lot going on that they've got planned to interact with the exhibit. So keep looking at Wisteria Hearst's website to find out more information about all of those things that will be coming up. On the next Fabulous 413, however, we'll head into the hill towns where the horses are tilling the land and a motivated farmer is turning connection to the land into practicable philosophy with a tour and talk about the workings of one of the few horse-powered farms in western Massachusetts with David Fisher of Natural Roots, who you might have heard when we did the year flood anniversary show.
That's right. And we'll talk with the Cannabis Control Commission's Bruce Stebbins about social consumption of cannabis as we head into 420 this weekend.
Otherwise known as Easter.
Another holiday that's made up around a date. Not Easter, 420.
Both of them.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.